Hi, everybody. Okay, we are burning the midnight. So let's get started on this day. Make sure. Make sure it went through. There it is. Okay. So 1,778 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room. And, that's still, every time I say it, that really gets to me because I heard it from the witnesses, right? I heard it from the witnesses and how they described it. He was forcibly removed from his barracks room. He knew his life was in danger, and he feared for his life, and his life was taken. And, there's no easy way to say this, but the chain of command are responsible. The chain of command are responsible. So that's why I think this, the messaging from the last, yesterday's parade was so important. I think Trump's message is the way things have been done is no more. This is they have a new commander in chief, and this was, of course, 250 years celebration of the history of the Army's birthday, and so I think that it took you back to when there were leaders like George Washington, when there were leaders like, some of our favorites, General Patton or General MacArthur, or, all these great leaders. It just reminded you, and I was speaking to many veterans today, of course, our friends and everything. And it really did reminded you, and add esprit de corps, because there has been, and there still is, mutiny in the ranks. There's mutiny in the ranks because things got so out of hand, and I think it's been getting out of hand for decades. And that's why we didn't want Richard to join the military, because we knew that it was out of hand. And and it's really hard to being the patriots that we are, and we're a very patriotic family, and we support the military. It's kind of like, well, you're American, and you know that your government is doing things wrong, or you think the military is doing things wrong, and you don't want to call it out because, it's kind of like your football team, right? You don't want to not support them, but we have to call out what is wrong. And clearly, Richard's case absolutely confirms that there is internal problems in our military. So much so that we have traitors wearing our uniforms with stars, and with senior NCO stripes, right? And and I want to say military. I mean, I'm very familiar with the Army, so that's what I'm speaking to. And that needs to stop, because look at what's going on. I think that the parade was a clear messaging that we have to be American, that we have to get serious. We have to get serious, and we need to go back to a disciplined military, a disciplined army. We need to stop the mutiny. We need to stop being a traitor. um, Stop the criminal trafficking. Stop. The criminal trafficking is the sale of our military equipment. This is why the parade was so important, because we need to display the equipment that we paid for. We paid for that. And it's been being sold, including the fuel. I mean, it's like they were trying to sell everything, including the kitchen sink. And that's why I think that this parade was so important. Not only did you get to see the fife and drum, the Army units that have been around since the time of George Washington, but also uh, our modern Army, right? Our modern Army, and where the leadership is coming from. And they're accountable to us, because this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, under God. And President Trump is the commander in chief. He's the commander in chief because we put him there. We put him there as the commander in chief. Overwhelmingly so. He has a total mandate. And so, whether they like him or not, because of the laws of our land, because we do let the people choose who is the commander in chief, every last one of the members in our military are bound by their oath to obey him as long as it meets the law standard of the land. That's why those that targeted Richard, ended Richard's life, covered it up, covered up the interference. This is very important. It will lead into the Walmart case that I want to talk about tonight. The connection again between Richard's case and the Walmart case, and a DHS agent that was the attaché for the consulate there in Juarez, Mexico, Jaime Corona. Jaime Corona. So that needs to be, every day. Yesterday we were talking about S-Switch. S-Switch, very interesting, because he was a fuels distributor. He was an exotic dancer. He is. And his address was on Fort Bliss. His address was on Fort Bliss. And that's who Richard's car was registered to before Richard. And there's all this is connected. This is all connected. And it connects to Bob Moore of El Paso Matters and Kathleen Gannon of KTEP. That's who it connects to. Kathleen Gannon and Bob Moore, even the latest, the couple of FBI retired agents that wanted to have a broadcast, that wanted to profit off of broadcasting about discussing the Walmart mass shooting, because they were working in the El Paso field office there, and they want to talk about Walmart. And we said, how can you do that? You can't do that, because number one, the federal case hasn't even released the information yet. We're still waiting for the information to be released. The Walmart mass shooting case is the craziest thing. right? We have so many questions. It ended without even a trial date, not one trial date, not one trial date on the federal side, not one trial date on the state side. The indictments were from two, let's look at the indictments. The indictments for Patrick Crucius, the first one came from Jaime Esparza. Well, that's defective because Jaime Esparza had a major conflict of interest. His sister was at the Walmart. She called him up. He went there before the crime scene um, was secured. He went there and he walked that crime scene. And we know because of the videos that we have and the witnesses that we've spoke to that they were filming it. And those pictures and those videos were not entered into the evidence. Now, this is a huge problem for Jaime Esparza and the first indictment. And that's why Bill Hicks changed the indictment for Patrick Crucius. And that is defective because Bill Hicks, and this is very important, is a usurper. Okay? He, and I've had people not like that word usurper, but I didn't name him usurper. A watchdog that explained to us why Bill Hicks was not a legitimate DA tipped us off to the word usurper. He said he usurps. He is a usurper of that position because he's not legal. He did not fill out the paperwork properly. And then when he was getting caught, even by a uh, a journalist, can you believe it? A journalist was actually interested. It's like, wow, okay. Because we haven't had a call about the Walmart case from a journalist. You would think even someone that was an aspiring journalist would want to call us and talk to us about the Walmart case because we know so much about it. And we have so much evidence and recordings and audio and so much about it. And, you know, but there is, that just confirms something is going on in our media, right? Just something is going on in our media. And thank you so much for coming on. I see Anicia. Thank you so much for your prayers and your love. Thank you, Danielle. I do believe individuals should look back at the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty. The large parts of the United States belonged to Mexico until President Polk strong armed Mexico, in my opinion, back in um, the 1800s. We fought a war with Mexico and the United States won. And it's just a done deal. And we've been the United States. We've had those borders. And Mexico is a failed state. It's a failed state, and it's not Mexico that wants the United States. It's other countries that are strong arming Mexico right now. That's very clear that Mexico is in the web of the CCP. That's very clear. And those that are aligned with the CCP, that are in business, that have business ventures with the CCP, that are traitors to our country. Mexico right now they just hung two people in Juarez yesterday. Okay? Just left them there hanging. That is indicative of a failed state. In May alone, they had 80 executions. That's indicative of a failed state. It is chaos over there. And we know because Richard's case reaches over into the Mexican government, and um, because of our tampered missing persons report from the AG office in Chihuahua, and the connections with that, with Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, um, with others that we're working that behind the scene, and that's really important because those that tampered, and it was terrible what they did. That kind of fraud, for a United States, a missing person, right? But a missing person that is part of the U.S. Army, and the lies, just the whole thing, what happened over there in the AG's office in Chihuahua is really concerning. Um, and so because of all of that, we understand to a more of a degree than what we would of what's going on in Mexico. And there's, Scheinbaum's, um, um, what do you call it? Official, it'll come to me. It's just late. Was executed, and her assistant was executed. Not Scheinbaum, but her, oh gosh, what do you call it? Advisor. Any, anyway, yeah. So that has just happened not too long ago. Generals have been executed. Um, it is absolutely, you have security quitting left and right. There's very little security over there. They do not want to work. If they do want to work, they want to work for the cartels. And ever since twentieth, January 20th, it's a different story over there because um, people cannot outwardly do business with the certain cartel groups because they are designated as the big T, as the big T group. And so, things have really changed. And then the spigots, a lot of money spigots have been turned off. So, there's a shaking going on and how things are ran. And I just think, um, you know, you uh, the reason why Mexicans are, and this is my opinion, are wanting to come over here and say this is Mexico, is because their beautiful country, Mexico, is so beautiful, and there's tons of room, and the culture can be so beautiful, but it is a failed state. There's no rule of law and there's no security, and there is just it's just lawlessness. So, that's why they are, um, you know, going along with saying this kind of stuff. Because if their country was not a failed state, was working correctly, they why would they want to come here, right? I mean, why would they want to come here? They just have this beautiful country. So, yeah, I just think that there is a lot of um, the narratives are not right. The narratives, are meant to divide instead of getting out the real problems. And we have those similar problems, and you see that in El Paso. And you see that with this Walmart case with Jaime Esparza, his indictment for Patrick Crucius is totally problematic. And if Patrick Crucius had a decent defense, I mean, he had a very expensive defense, millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? But Joe Spencer was up to no good. And how do we know that Joe Spencer was up to no good? Well, because you have this very defective indictment. And then you have a second indictment because they had to change it, they had to edit it, they had to tweak it instead of that they tweaked it of like from multiple counts to one count of multiple people instead of multiple counts of multiple people, one count of multiple people. Okay. So, which, is very different, but it's still defective because Bill Hicks was illegitimate and Jaime Esparza had a huge, huge conflict of interest, a huge conflict of interest. And they put him on the federal case. He was screened from the federal case, but because of that. But they put him on that federal case until people, said no, he can't be on it. He has a conflict of interest. And him, being AUSA, going from DA to AUSA is also lots of red flags go up with that. And so let's talk about Jaime Corona, the Walmart case, and what all this means to Richard's case. Well, Richard, we know he was being targeted starting in December of 2019, the latest. That's the latest. So they were already having problems with him. If they are going to collude and conspire and start targeting him as a group, as a criminal group, okay, this was a group effort, then they had to plan it. They had to have their own little op board, right? And so if it started the latest in December of 2019, then Richard was doing something before then, right? That was a risk to them. So, and we know that there were investigations going on, that there were audits going on, that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. We know through the executive orders of President Trump in 2017, 2018, 2019, that and the investigations that were going on. The investigations that were reported were of the Walmart for money laundering. Okay? That the cartel was using Walmart to money launder. We know that. You can Google it, right? And you will find it. And we know that there were investigations at the border for many different things because President Trump wanted to vet the border. He wanted to close the border to vet those that were coming back and forth. We also know that buses that were chartered, the finest buses, these are luxurious buses, were being chartered to go to Mexico every day during the week to pick up children, to bring them into El Paso, to attend the ISDs, the independent schools, the schools in El Paso. We know that. That is widely reported on. We know that there was a lot of trafficking going on. There was a lot of investigations, 2017, 2018, 2019. And Richard was a witness to that. And he was a willing witness, because there's a lot of witnesses, right? But he was a whistleblower. He actually was in communication with Washington, D.C. He actually was in communication with FBI Houston. He actually was in communication with the IG, the CID. He actually filed complaints to the Child Protective Services multiple times. He actually called 911 multiple times. This is not me thinking it, taking it out of the air. This is confirmed. This is confirmed evidence. He was a whistleblower, and he was part of ongoing investigations. He was a threat to this group, so much so, and it wasn't just an individual. Okay, you have to remember that Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart and Danae Katzen and Jonathan Caleb Ambrose and Tavita Nusa and all of them are Gustavo Sanchez, Jesus Nieto, Nidal Baem, Bradford Bugado, Amber Chase. All of them are part of a group. They're part of a criminal group, and their leader, I would call him their leader, would be Kathleen Gannon and Bob Moore. And of course, a billionaire behind that. So, absolutely, that is that tells you what was going on before the Walmart mass shooting. And the Walmart mass shooting, we know the evidence, not because I want it to be, not because I'm taking it out of the air, but we know that it was orchestrated. That not only did they collude and conspire to silence Richard, to target Richard, to retaliate against Richard, to silence Richard, to cover up the interference in the cases, the investigations about Richard. That's really important. But they also did that for the Walmart case. The same thing. They conspired, they colluded, they planned it, and then they covered up the interference of the investigation into the Walmart case. They covered up the investigation, the interference with the investigation of the Walmart case. The same playbook with both cases. And the Walmart mass shooting was a result from the investigations that Richard was a witness to, a whistleblower to. And I think that really makes everyone understand that there were investigations going on. They orchestrated this Walmart mass shooting to divert attention away from the investigations, to get the investigators off their backs. And there was a shakeup in the cartel. Okay, I'm telling you, there was a shakeup in the cartel. And that's why You have the video of Alexander Hofmann laying on the floor of the Walmart. That's why. There was a shakeup. There was, because the investigations caused, you know, caused so much, well, it exposed so much. And if you're being exposed and you're part of the group, you might say, okay, can I make a plea deal? Can I tell you what I know? And maybe some of those cartel were making plea deals. Maybe some of them turned informant. And to turn informant, when you have Nieto in the FBI, when you have, um, Gustavo Sanchez as Texas Ranger, when you have Manuel Chavira as, well, he was part of this fire um, response to Walmart. And because of this cover up of the interference in the investigation, he, and this is my opinion, then he was given this chief of police for the ISD without the qualifications for it. He got that position without uh, a peace officer's license. So how, that doesn't make people, um yeah, we thank you. We do need a hearing. We do need a congressional hearing. Thank you so much, Danielle. Um but for Manuel Chavira, as part of A&R Chavira Auto LLC, and Bob Moore as part of A&R Chavira Auto Group LLC. I mean, you could call this criminal group A&R Chavira Auto Group LLC, because this car auto group LLC is it brings together this Nidal Baem and Manuel Chavira, and of course Raquel Primo, and then Bob Moore and Kathleen Gannon, and it connects so much. It connects so much. And that's why they could not possibly give us Richard's car, and they had to feed us a bunch of lies. And we knew that it was dirty, but you know, there were so many lies, and we knew that there were so many lies, and what we cared about was, where's our son? And was there any possible way he could still be alive? And we didn't know why these people that were quote unquote helping us, misleading us and lying to us, and we knew they were. We knew they were. And we knew that they were up to no good. And, you know, we just didn't let them gaslight us. We didn't, you know, we decided to be patient. And, I lost my patience, and even Rob lost his patience with the generals, because you would want and expect more from our generals, because we give them everything, right? We give them everything. But these informants or these agents that were, helping us, quote, quote, but then impersonating us and still impersonating us, still extracting information, still. So, you know, we knew And so we were uh, knowing that, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep Richard's case going. And this is for the long haul. This is for the long haul because this is big, and we didn't know how big, but now get into a little bit about Jaime Corona, because Jaime Corona, who is part of this group, okay, a group of obstructionists, a group that they're up to no good, and Jaime Corona was a Department of Homeland Security agent, and but he was the attaché for the consulate in Ciudad Juarez. And remember, Nidal Baem said Richard's remains were found and he was dead. And he clearly said that he's dead, and his remains were found in Juarez. And we have since had other corroborating information that it's partial remains in Juarez. And Nidal Baem put his finger up to his mouth to say silent. You have to stay silent. You can't tell anybody what I just told you. Now that's crazy. And then they say he's just some guy, and he's not just some guy. He's related to Manuel Chavira. He's related to Gustavo Sanchez, the Texas Ranger that was assigned to our case. He's related to Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ATCOM. He is a Palestinian arms dealer that absolutely has business dealings with our agencies and institutions in El Paso that require arms and ammunition, including the El Paso Police Department. And he's connected with Fort Bliss through Bradford Bugado. And they told us he was nobody. And he's absolutely part of this group. He's connected to Jesus Eddie Nieto, the FBI agent there at the El Paso office. He's somebody. And they were covering up the interference, you see. That's what the generals were doing, but they were interfering in the case. So what did they do? They absolutely tampered with records. They tampered with even the Mexican records across the border. So as Jaime Corona being the attaché for Department of Homeland Security, but for the Department of State, and we know that records got tampered with over there. And the big records that we really want are the forensic records. The forensic records, because Richard's partial, be it all of him or be it partial of him, were in Mexico. And Jaime Corona corroborated that information. He's one of those that admitted that this was the case. We know that the Department of State, to us, corroborated that the FBI were in Mexico looking for Richard's remains. And he proceeded to tell us the 5 spots. We have 3, and then I guess maybe someone was waving at him telling him to shut up. I don't know. That's my guess. And we have others. And this is not just nobody. This is the attaché for Homeland Security to the State Department in Juarez, Mexico. A big part of Richard's case, but he was also a big part of other things. And here he is corroborating that what Nidal Baem, because they're all part of this group, what Nidal Baem was saying was right. So, there's so many agencies involved in this. And with each one, we just go down the list. And that's why this is, for everyone that's listening, you might think, oh, geez, why is this taking so long? And for us too, it's just taking so long. But really, what we have accomplished, what we have found out, the top level of evidence that we have collected, this hard evidence that we have collected, the discovery of Michael Mayela's family being part and giving that to the public, being part of Patrick Crucius's family. And let's talk about the Walmart case for a second. The Walmart mass shooting happened on August 3rd, 2019. Patrick Crucius has a long record of mental health conditions, including severe autism. It is documented. It wasn't a secret. Okay? So, because of the level of crime that a mass shooting is, and this is something I've had to learn during this whole thing. I am not pretending to be, just all knowledgeable on this. This is absolutely what years of investigating have taught us, and putting all the pieces together to understand. And so we want to share it with you. And so it's very important because I didn't know this, that when you have a mass shooting in Texas, by law, there has to be a competency hearing. And especially when you have someone that has a history of mental health issues or conditions. By law, by Texas law, they must have a mental health evaluation competency test. Now, this does not mean, this is totally different from the motives and the ability to commit the crime. That's not what I'm talking about. The competency hearing is, are they competent to stand a trial, to stand this case? Do they need to be ushered off real quick to a different facility? Or are they capable of going through a trial? That's what that is. Not, are they capable of doing the crime, right? Could they come up with the crime? Could they come up with the manifesto? That is not what this is all about. It is just, are they capable of standing the trial. And you see this, what the heck was it at the end when he's hugging people? That's just crazy. It's just crazy. But anyway, he never got that competency to see if he was able, and many times he never showed up, right? He was not there for the hearings. He should have been there for every hearing. You're talking about his entire life and a death sentence. At that time, it was a death sentence. And because of this level of crime, they need, by law, the first thing they should have done was to give him a competency hearing. But that's not what happened. What happened was, on Saturday, August 3rd, 2019, here is the Walmart mass shooting. On Sunday morning at 5:42 a.m., Sunday morning, not even a day later, just hours later, they approved the application for appointed counsel. And that application is fraudulent. Why? Because, and I showed it, it's 0, 0 income, 0 expenditures. There's not one number on that entire application. You're telling me that Patrick Crucius had 0 expenses, 0 income, and yet had a car and insurance and internet and bought weapons and ammunition and food and everything, and he had no income and no expenditures, and then he's supposed to be a lone shooter. He must have had someone there to pay for everything because he had 0, right? 0. And they approved that fraudulent, where he signed it, Pat C. They approved it at 5:42 a.m. on a Sunday morning. No scrutiny because nobody was there. No scrutiny because nobody was there. And guess what happened on Monday? Without a competency and before the appointed counsel visits Patrick Crucius in the jail, there should have been a competency. Under the law, there should have been a competency. Because why do you want to spend millions and millions of dollars on an open checkbook Joe Spencer? Why couldn't you just, you could have sent in a public defender until you got the competency, and until you had the approval of a vetted application of indigency, which means is the taxpayer on the hook for his defense? But they didn't do that. Everything that was supposed to be done right, they didn't do. And on the 5th, so the 4th at 5:42 a.m., they approve it. And on the 5th, that Monday, so 2 days later, Joe Spencer is in the jail visiting Patrick Crucius. Yet we have audio saying that he was in conversation with Judge Medrano and Judge Guadarrama, saying that he'll only get on the case if he's given an open checkbook, that he doesn't want nickels and dimes. He doesn't want to beg for nickels and dimes for this or for that. Now, when did he have the conversation with Judge Medrano and Judge Guadarrama? Because they weren't even appointed to the case yet. And Patrick Crucius hadn't even been indicted yet. That didn't come. I think he got indicted on the 9th, the first indictment. So this case went through with this botched beginning, with botched indictments, and not one date set for a trial. Not one date set for a trial. And then no death penalty. No death penalty. And millions of dollars spent. And so what that shows is that the same group that covers up for the interference. So let me get my I want to call them underlings to do all the interference, to tamper with the files, to erase names, to put out stories in the press to mislead the thoughts of the people on what's going on, while all of this interference is going on. So you got all this interference going on, and then you have a whole layer of people that are covering for the interference. Let me just seal the case. Then you can't see the interference. Let me just put a gag order on. Then you can't see or talk about the interference. And that is absolutely the Walmart case and absolutely Richard's case. Let's not talk about the car. Don't ask about his bank accounts. You can't get into them. Why not? I mean, that was the craziest thing, that they would not give us access to our son's accounts. They would not give us access to his phone. They would not give us access to his car. So this is covering up for the interference. They would not tell us about, or they would say Nidal Baem is just some guy. No, they were covering up for his interference. Because what else did he do in the case that he was privy to this kind of information? What was going on? And what part did Bradford Bugado play in the targeting and the silencing of our son? And covering up for the prime suspects being Dallas Hart and Leilani Hart. It's just, it's absolutely all coming together. And I'm going to tell you, there's ongoing investigations right now. And that's why they're very sensitive. And you saw this Mike Cordero, so sensitive about the Walmart case. Why? He is a retired FBI agent. Why doesn't he just go in and enjoy his retirement? He doesn't have access. He doesn't have any authority to mess with this case, and the federal case has not released the information yet. Why does he even care? Why does he get mad? Why does he let all of his trained protocol just fall away, and he gets upset and contacts us, which is a no-no? Why do they get upset? Because Richard's case is intertwined with the Walmart case. And the interference was ran by many people in both. And it's absolutely tied to cartels, Mexican cartels, and those that are traders with the Mexican cartels that are absolutely serving foreign and domestic enemies instead of honoring their oath that they took. It's very clear. And you have The cooperation and more, there's more. Because look, Jaime Corona, yes, he corroborated that Richard was no longer alive. And he absolutely, um, that uh, partial remains were in Juarez, Mexico. And he's not just nobody, he's DHS. He's attache to the Department of State. You have DES Thomas Kane corroborating that Richard was no longer alive. You have the State Department corroborating Nidal Baem. And there's others. And so, and this is not just some person on the street. So, and we know that this group is absolutely connected to Willie Moya. Manuel Chavira is so connected to Willie Moya, who was the big cartel leader, who also was silenced in a cartel style hit, along with Arturo Alba, who's also part of this group. And they just happen to be like Univision, Telemundo, KTEP, El Paso Matters, KVIA. This group is media, but this group is military. This group is also with casualty affairs. This group is, in the courthouse. This group is in the DA's office. This group is in the JAG. This group is in Richard's chain of command. This group is in the Mexican Attorney General's office. This group is in the El Paso ISD. This group is LLC owners such as Raquel Primo and her partner, Alexandra Chavira. And this group involves also contractors. It involves Eswich and, of course, Leilani Hart. Eswich was an exotic dancer. That's like right in the same little business as Bullet and Rocha. And Leilani Hart was getting her mail at a place where they had exotic dancing. So it's and there's also some Marines involved in this. And as we get the liberty to say everything more, we absolutely will. But I think that today, and I hope, it's so hard. Sometimes this could get so convoluted. But if you look at the timeline, it's Richard's whistleblowing investigations going on. Richard being a witness to the investigations, the Walmart as a cover-up distraction. There was many different reasons for the Walmart. We have an official telling us that, absolutely telling us that the Walmart scene was staged. Okay. This is not just somebody, this was someone in charge. And, so were they doing these kinds of staging, these kinds of colluding? And we have Bob Moore doing that over and over and over again, where he is creating the crime and then reporting on it on a false story. He's manufacturing and then reporting on it. Um, so they absolutely are. Our evidence absolutely shows um, that they together went after Richard, and we know that they went after us because we have all the screenshots and all the history to show you, like, okay, wait a minute, we have a missing son. No, we have, we're a Gold Star family and they're retaliating against us. I don't understand that. Shouldn't they be helping? Aren't these veterans? Aren't these military? Aren't these, uh, those that want the best for El Paso? And and there was absolutely a conspiracy going on. There was access because of impersonating us, access to files. And let me tell you, they could have done so much damage. It is amazing that Rob has such a stellar record. And, and I have a stellar record. Our children have stellar records because they were combing through everything to find any little thing that they could use against us. And, isn't that a horrible thing? Because what if, what would that have to do anything with their duty to protect and find Richard and uh, hold those accountable that hurt Richard? You know, it had nothing to do with it. But they were trying to intimidate. They were absolutely, and that's why they had to make up false stuff. So, it was, and of course, smear Richard and keep from the public that he was a whistleblower. But that's all been confirmed, and now in the line of duty, um, designation 4 days after President Trump came in. So, it really, um, that shows you that they have the evidence, and you know everything's in God's timing. But this has been just amazing. So thank you so much, and thank you. We do need to have a hearing, but you see that with Veronica Escobar, it's her duty to give us a hearing. You see the worst senator anyone could possibly have, and that's Lindsey Graham. He's the worst. And I hope he gets prime. What do you call it? He gets. I think someone's running against him, and we'll be like, okay, yay! He's the worst senator ever. He is so ready for sending our sons and daughters to war, and yet I just can't even tell you how bad he is. He's so bad. He could care less about Richard Halliday. And, but he's suave because he sent us a condolence letter. Okay? So he's real sneaky, and that makes him the worst. He's very sneaky. So I have no good words for Lindsey Graham. But Veronica Escobar, she has the oversight of Fort Bliss. She absolutely, even another witness, she blocked him from having his hearing in Congress. So she's totally violated her oath and the rights and our rights. So, and we're working all of that out. There's just a lot going on. So, are we going to get a hearing? We'll see. We'll see. Everything's in God's hands, and everything, it's kind of like this bee that uh, killed Prince William's friend, right? Billionaire friend. A bee went down his throat, and, did he expect that? It's just a horrible, horrible thing. And the whole point of it is, you think you've got everything lined up. You're a billionaire and all of that, and you're untouchable, and then all of a sudden, a little bee comes, something so unexpected, and that's just tells you that God is in control. So we'll see how this is. There's no doubt in my mind. Just finding out who Nidal Baem was just a miracle. And so we're right, that's part of the book. And the book is been being written this whole time, but every day is breaking news. I mean, oh my gosh, this whole thing with Richard's car, this whole thing with R and A Chavira being related to Bob Moore and Manuel Chavira, bringing those together. And Manuel Chavira totally bringing in everybody else, Nidal Baem, and this whole group is now solidified through evidence. And that's why, this book isn't done yet. So thank you so much for all of your tips. Thank you for sharing this case every day. Thank you for sharing these live streams every day. And it's, we're getting there. But please pray for us and pray for the United States. This amazing parade, okay, because I remember the parades of Desert Shield and Desert Storm. I was even part of this whole expenditure of trying to bring up the esprit de corps, right? That's why I was in the clown outfit, because they wanted these celebrations, because if the esprit de corps is built, then our military functions much better, right? And so, this parade, it was very unifying, and which is a little scary, because it's like, okay, what are they preparing for? But it just has a lot of messaging to it, a lot of messaging, and we're just trying to look through the parade itself to the messaging to find out what they want us to know. What's the real reason behind this? What's the real I guess the intent going forward. So and I thought it was pretty moving, very beautiful, and very patriotic. And President Trump does it right. He does it right. It brought a lot of people together. And he's bringing the United States together, because I think we're in a war for it. We're in for it. And we have to come together. So thank you so much, everyone. and God bless you. And I will be back